All right, let's talk about Josh Sweat, formerly of the Philadelphia Eagles, now of the Arizona Cardinals. What will he bring to the table in a system that he has played before? Jonathan Gannon, of course, was the defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles a couple years ago. Then now he is the head coach of the Cardinals. So what will Josh Sweat bring to the table, and why did Gannon want to make sure that he brought Sweat to Arizona? Well, you see, I'm going to use some footage from the Super Bowl. We got to talk about the Super Bowl, right? The guy had 2.5 sacks in a Super Bowl. I'm sure that, made him more desirable. This is an interesting play because he actually doesn't have a single offensive lineman blocking him, but he does have both Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco, a tight end and a running back, blocking him. Watch how when this play begins, you see that Kelce really doesn't do much of anything to slow down Josh Sweat, but you have Pacheco in a pretty good position to hopefully be able to block him. However, watch what Sweat does here. Watch how he gets the left arm and it kind of just shoves Pacheco aside, and he's able to help get to Mahomes along with some help, as Mahomes was often under trouble from several different areas in that game. But Sweat is able to ultimately get over and make that tackle. It's really good stuff by him. And you could sit here and, if you want to, say, well, he wasn't going up against a lineman. But okay, let's show a play where he was going up against an offensive lineman along with a running back, as the Pacheco is going to be helping out block Josh Sweat here, as they don't want to just leave their tackles one-on-one given the way the game is going. So Mahomes takes a snap, and you're going to see Sweat, to Pacheco's credit, does get disrupted on this play. Pacheco's able to deliver a nice blow, but here's where Sweat's awareness comes in. As the guard is moving over towards the top of the screen to make sure he blocks the guy he has to block, Sweat, right after getting clocked, kind of realizes, oh, hey, there's a window to run more up the middle and potentially get to Mahomes. That's exactly what he does. Mahomes tried to step through that window, but Sweat got there way before Mahomes did and is able to get there for another sack. So really, Sweat was a force in that Super Bowl. Again, it's one game. You don't get paid a big contract off of one game, but it is definitely the highlight of his career up until this point, right? Obviously. He can win in more non-traditional ways as well. Like the stunts that he can pull off are really good. And a stunt is what you see. So the center is going to be blocking towards the top of the screen on this play, which means that the left guard is going to be blocking the interior defensive lineman. So what you do is you have that defensive lineman kind of run towards the guard's left, try to get him more towards the bottom of the screen, and with the center blocking towards the top of the screen, Josh Sweat avoids the tackle altogether and tries to get into that gap. Okay, it's a concept that you run, and sometimes it works out better than others, but watch how well this one's going to be executed. Watch as when this play begins, Sweat gets through so fast. What is Lawrence supposed to do there other than just take the sack? That's incredible stuff by, all the Eagles involved, not just Sweat, but definitely Sweat is someone who could be a tool in Jonathan Gannon's tool belt for sure. But of course, I'm showing a lot of sort of non-traditional reps, but I want to be very clear. He can win in traditional reps as well, like, okay, going up one-on-one against a left tackle, which, let's be honest, you pay a guy big money as an edge rusher to win these reps, to be able to win these with some consistency, especially on a 3rd down and 12 when the quarterback might be holding onto the ball a little bit longer, having to, maybe wait for something to get open. When this play begins, you see that what Sweat does is it's called a rip move, where he gets his left arm and gets it underneath the left arm of the left tackle. Left tackle's left arm is always going to be so important, so if you can get that out of position, that's how you can make things happen, and that's exactly what Sweat is doing right here. This left arm for the tackle just can't really do anything. Because of that, watch Sweat get through, and he ultimately does not quite get there in time because there was a receiver open, but he would have gotten there in time had Lawrence had to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. Only so much you can do as an edge rusher. The ball gets out of the quarterback's hands quickly. There's only going to be so much you can do, but that's a really good play from Sweat, and that shows what he can do and what he can do consistently. He also has plays like this where it's going to be a 3rd down and 4, and he's not just a technique guy, and he's not just a speed guy. Going up one-on-one against a tackle once again. Once this play begins, you're going to see that he's really just going to try and bull rush right here. See if he can overpower his assigned man, and can he? Well, as you see, the answer to that is absolutely yes. He's able to just drive that tackle back, number 72, and gets all the way to Lawrence for another sack right there. So yeah, again, he can do so many different things, and honestly, as good as he is at all this stuff, at pass rushing, and he's a good run defender as well, probably one of my favorite things about him is his motor. Like, this play is a good example where it's going to be still in this Jacksonville Jaguars game. And listen, I show the highlights, I show the most important plays when I make a film study, but the reality is, life as an edge rusher is hard. Usually the offensive line wins the majority of reps. There's only so many opportunities you get to actually disrupt a play, and you try to make the most of them. 3rd and 5, this is an opportunity. But as you see, Sweat isn't going to win this one, and you can't win every rep, right? The great edge rushers will win like 15% of the time. It just is what it is. It's hard to consistently get wins. But okay, he's found himself in this position. Here is what I love about Josh Sweat, and I think it really showed in the Super Bowl when the Eagles were constantly disrupting Mahomes, even after Mahomes was able to get outside the pocket and things like that. Josh Sweat is someone who is not afraid to run you down. And watch as when Lawrence tries to get outside the pocket, Sweat doesn't really let him get his head turned around. Lawrence tries to throw the ball away, but is unable to there as Sweat also knocks it down. So really good stuff here by Josh Sweat to be able to pull something like that off. And again, for a team like Arizona, who is still trying to establish a winning culture, having high motor players who are going to constantly be fighting and who has won a Super Bowl will help kind of instill that winning culture in the new team that he's going to go to. So yeah, ultimately, I am a fan of this move. I'm a big fan of this move. I think that, again, he does a couple of things. And the Cardinals have already, I think, done a lot of work in establishing a winning culture. But having a guy, it matters more when you have a guy who's won a Super Bowl who can say, like, oh yeah, I know we're down 7 in the 3rd, but don't worry about it, we're all right. It matters more when it comes from that guy than when it comes from just another guy. It could be the same words. It does. It matters more. And I just think in general, he's a high motor player who is going to lead by example on a lot of these plays. But again, it's not like the Cardinals had a bunch of guys taking plays off. They've already established that. But these little things just help as well, I think, especially with rookies and things of that nature. So ultimately, if you didn't have any of that, it's still a really good signing. You're getting a really effective edge rusher who's been consistently very good for the Eagles and has played a scheme that is the same scheme that he's going to be going to, because there always is that concern of when you sign a free agent, sometimes they just don't work in the new scheme for whatever reason. And while I wouldn't say it's a guarantee that it will work, because, again, Philadelphia also had a lot of really good defensive talent around Sweat. Sweat is going to a situation where he is going to be the guy instead of a guy, and I do think that is probably the biggest concern if you're a Cardinals fan, is do you see a bit of dip? But ultimately, having a guy can still really help a defensive line, and it can maybe allow some of the other defensive linemen to not have to be, the star, and maybe they can just be focus on being role players. It might make them better as well. That's something that also will happen. So ultimately, yeah, hard to not like this move. I think if you're a Cardinals fan, definitely a good one, and on a reasonable deal, getting a good player, that usually helps. So those are my thoughts on all of this. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.